Everyone at the car meet couldn't help but snicker when James pulled up in his old beat-up sedan. Its paint was faded, the bumper was hanging by a thread, and it rattled so loud you could hear it from a block away. Some people whispered, others laughed openly. To them, he was just another dreamer, showing up with a car that looked like it belonged in a junkyard rather than at a high-end show. But James? He just smiled, nodded politely, and kept on walking like he had a secret no one else knew. What they didn't realize was that James wasn't there to impress anyone with his ride. He didn't need to, because parked just a few miles away, hidden behind tall gates and thick trees, was something no one could have imagined. A 100-car garage filled with some of the rarest, most expensive, and most breathtaking cars in the world. From vintage classics to limited edition hypercars, James had quietly built a collection that most could only dream of. But how did a man with such a rusty, worn-out car end up owning a private garage worth millions? And why was he driving a car that looked like it could barely make it down the street? The truth wasn't just about money. It was about something much deeper. It was about values, lessons learned the hard way, and a journey filled with twists no one expected. As the crowd at the car meet kept laughing, James knew that soon enough, the smiles would fade, the whispers would stop, and the real story would leave them speechless. And when the secret finally came out, it would change the way they looked at him forever. James hadn't always lived a life surrounded by luxury cars and shiny garage doors. In fact, not too long ago, he was just a kid working 2 part-time jobs, struggling to pay for a small apartment and an old car that barely ran. He grew up believing that real success wasn't something you showed off. It was something you built quietly, brick by brick, while everyone else was too busy trying to look rich. Every extra dollar he earned didn't go toward flashy clothes or expensive nights out. Instead, it went into a small savings account labeled Dream. That dream started with his first real car, a broken-down '68 Mustang he found in a junkyard. Most people would have walked right past it, but James saw something different. He saw potential. He spent every weekend fixing it up, learning everything about engines, paintwork, and restorations. That one car turned into 2, then 5, then 20. Before he knew it, James wasn't just fixing cars. He was collecting history, piece by piece, one rare find at a time. But he kept his success hidden. The beat-up sedan he drove today wasn't a sign of failure. It was a choice. It was a reminder of where he started, a piece of his journey that kept him grounded no matter how high he climbed. As the sun dipped lower and the laughter at the car meet grew louder, James quietly pulled out his phone. A few taps, a quick call. Within minutes, engines roared in the distance. One by one, a fleet of gleaming cars began to roll toward the parking lot. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, vintage Mustangs, cars most people had only ever seen in magazines. And in that moment, everything was about to change. The crowd froze as the first car pulled up. A cherry-red Ferrari 250 GTO, the kind of car you only saw at million-dollar auctions. Heads turned, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Then came a sleek black McLaren P1, its engine growling like a wild animal. People started whispering, looking around, trying to figure out who these cars belonged to. James stood quietly by his battered sedan, hands in his pockets, a small smile playing on his lips. But not everyone was impressed. A few guys who had been the loudest earlier, mocking his car and laughing at him, started getting defensive. One of them, Kyle, a local influencer who loved flashing his leased sports car around town, stepped forward. He crossed his arms, trying to act unfazed. "Anyone can rent a few nice cars for a day," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. A few nervous chuckles followed, but most people stayed silent, watching to see what James would do. James didn't argue. He simply nodded toward the convoy that was still pulling in, a line of rare classics, powerful supercars, and custom builds. Each car bore a small, simple logo on the license plate frame. *J. Harrington Collection*. The name started to click with some of the older car enthusiasts. Stories about a private collector who had once outbid billionaires for rare models. A man who had turned rusty shells into museum-worthy masterpieces. Whispers spread like wildfire. Was it really him? Could this quiet, unassuming guy with a junker car be the same Jay Harrington everyone had heard rumors about? Meanwhile, Kyle's confidence was starting to crack, but he wasn't ready to back down. And James knew. The real test wasn't just about showing off cars. It was about proving what truly mattered. And that moment hadn't arrived yet. The energy in the parking lot shifted fast. Phones were out, recording every second as more rare cars kept arriving. A Bugatti Chiron, a mint-condition Shelby Cobra, even a Porsche 918 Spider that looked like it had just rolled off the showroom floor. The car meet, once filled with laughter and teasing, had turned into a stunned, almost reverent silence. People didn't know whether to cheer, to ask for photos, or just stand there and stare. Kyle, feeling the eyes of the crowd slipping away from him, forced a laugh and shouted, "Yeah, nice cars. But what's it prove? You're still the guy who showed up in that piece of junk." He pointed at James' old sedan, desperate to win back the moment. A few of his friends nodded, but their smiles were uneasy now, unsure. The crowd wasn't buying it anymore. James stayed calm, never once raising his voice. He leaned casually against his car and said, "Funny thing about this junk, it's the first car I ever bought. Fixed it up with my own hands. Every scratch, every dent, tells a story. Kinda like me." His words hung in the air, heavy and real. People who loved cars, who respected the journey more than the show, started nodding. But just when it seemed the night was settling into admiration, a loud screech of tires shattered the moment. A custom Lamborghini, roaring like thunder, pulled into the lot at full speed. The driver, a rival collector known for flashy auctions and aggressive deals, stepped out, locking eyes with James. Tension crackled between them instantly. This wasn't just about impressing a car meet anymore. It was about a challenge, about history, pride, and respect. And the biggest confrontation of the night was just getting started. The crowd parted like water as the new arrival strutted forward. His name was Marcus Blackwell, a man known in the car world not just for his deep pockets, but for his ego even bigger than his garage. Unlike James, Marcus made sure everyone knew exactly how rich he was. Flashy Instagram posts, rented yachts, viral videos. His reputation was built on showing off, not building up. And tonight, it was clear he wasn't here by accident. Word had gotten out that Jay Harrington might finally show his face, and Marcus wasn't about to let someone else steal his spotlight. Marcus smirked and sized James up like he was nothing more than a joke. "Heard a rumor," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "that the great Jay Harrington was just some nobody clinging to a rust bucket." He laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that echoed through the lot. "Guess it's true. A man's car says a lot about him." James stayed quiet, but his jaw tightened. The stakes were no longer just about pride. Marcus wasn't just challenging him in front of the local crowd. He was dragging James' entire reputation into the mud. A few of Marcus's guys started pulling the crowd toward his Lamborghini, showing off its custom gold trim and diamond-stitched leather seats. For a second, it looked like the mood might turn. And then, just when things couldn't get more heated, a low rumble filled the air, deeper, more powerful than anything before. From the far end of the lot, a truck rolled up, pulling a covered trailer. James' eyes narrowed slightly. The real ace up his sleeve was about to be revealed. But what was inside that trailer was something even Marcus couldn't have seen coming. And it would change everything. The truck came to a stop right in the center of the lot. Everyone crowded around, phones up, buzzing with excitement. Even Marcus, arms crossed and smirking, looked curious now. Slowly, the trailer's ramp lowered, and the cover was pulled back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sitting on the trailer was a car most people thought they'd never see in real life, a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, not just any model, but the legendary chassis #3851 GT, one of the rarest and most valuable cars in the world. The deep red paint shimmered under the parking lot lights, untouched by time. It wasn't just a car, it was history. It was art. It was proof. James walked calmly toward the trailer, keys in hand. Without a word, he fired up the engine, the deep roar sending a chill down everyone's spine. He drove the Ferrari off the trailer, parking it right next to Marcus's flashy Lamborghini. The difference between them was clear as day. One was a loud statement, the other pure legacy. Marcus's smirk finally cracked. He knew he couldn't compete. No flashy mods, no rented supercars could touch what James had just pulled off. The crowd didn't just cheer. They swarmed James, asking questions, taking photos, treating him like a legend. For the first time all night, the laughter wasn't at him. It was pure awe. James could have basked in it. He could have thrown it all in Marcus's face. But instead, he stepped aside, letting a small, older man in overalls walk forward. James clapped him on the back and said, "This is the real legend. He taught me everything I know." The real twist wasn't the cars. It wasn't the money. It was the simple truth James had known all along. Respect isn't bought. It's built. The old man, Mr. Harris, gave a shy wave as the crowd clapped for him. He wasn't some famous billionaire or flashy businessman. He was a retired mechanic who had once run a tiny shop on the edge of town. The same shop where James had spent years learning about cars, about patience, and about life. James had never forgotten the lessons Mr. Harris taught him. That true value isn't in the shine or the price tag, but in the story, the effort, and the heart behind every engine. As the crowd slowly started to thin out, a few people came over, not to take pictures of the cars, but to thank James for showing them something real. Even Kyle, red-faced and awkward, managed a mumbled apology before disappearing into the night. Marcus left without another word, his pride clearly dented more than any car ever could be. James looked around the now quiet lot, the Ferrari gleaming under the streetlights, his old sedan sitting proudly nearby. He smiled, knowing he hadn't just won the night by revealing his 100-car garage or rolling out million-dollar cars. He had won by staying true to who he was from the start. Before leaving, James turned to Mr. Harris and tossed him the keys to the beat-up sedan. "It's yours now," he said with a grin. "She deserves someone who knows her story." As they drove off into the night, one in a classic Ferrari, the other in a battle-worn old car that meant more than gold, the message was clear. In a world obsessed with appearances and status, the real treasures are the memories we build, the people we honor, and the passion we never forget. And sometimes, the most beat-up things hide the most beautiful stories.